episode of Sportslandia, the newly named podcast
Newly minted.
on the Next Professional Athlete platform. I'm Brian Slyke. That's Ray Bradley. Raymundo. I don't know. You got a couple nicknames, don't you?
Couple. I've rolled through a couple, and my different states have been transplanted too. So that's the one we're going with today.
All right. Well, we kind of wanted to get everybody a bit of background about ourselves. I'm a transplant into the Portland area, moved here in 2019, and that's basically where we met through our mutual work at the University of Portland.
Yeah.
But, I'm a Midwestern guy, originally from outside of Chicago, so unfortunately it's been a rough calendar season for the Chicago sports market.
Yeah.
I'm a Cubs fan. I've got nothing against the Sox, but you never know.
Nothing for the Sox
Nothing
either.
for the Sox either, yeah. Blackhawks have been a bit of a downturn, but we got Bedard, so I'm pretty excited about what that's going to be like. The Bears are just god-awful.
Yeah, we'll probably skip that.
We'll talk about that later, though, in the episode. But yeah, mainly a lot of Chicago-centric things for myself. But that being said, we're going to be talking a lot of national sports. But we are going to have a little bit of sprinkled in atmosphere of the Chicagoland area, and then also where you're from originally.
Yes, yeah. I too am a transplant, a multiple transplant at this point. Was born in Boston, raised in Idaho, so didn't have too many teams in Idaho, so went for those Boston teams.
Go Vandals,
You know, not the Vandals. If anything, the Broncos, where I'm in southern Idaho.
Yeah.
But I'm familiar with the Midwest. People often think I'm from Iowa when I say I'm from Idaho, so I feel that.
I think that says more about other people and not knowing their geographical locations. But
it says, I's and O's, they all sound similar. But yeah, I think I lucked out a little bit more in my timing of my fandoms, it would seem, certainly. For a long time was a Pats fan, watching them get all the way and lose, which was difficult. But, broke through that wall, got a couple, very happy with that. Now I'm completely resigned to the mediocrity that will be our next 20 years. Certainly seems like it.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. So excited for that. Big Celtics fan as well. I still remember watching the 08 Celtics run. My dad trying to keep me up at night as I'm falling asleep as a little kiddo.
Got to watch history.
Yep. Fell off that team. Got back on them with those Isaiah Thomas, Avery Bradley,
of course,
Jared Sullinger. There's some better ones. Marcus Smart. Those years. So yeah, largely football, basketball for me. Hockey, haven't as much had a connection to. Baseball, I think we'll get to in a little bit as far as where my fandom fell off for the Red Sox specifically, and some of the
pretty
disappointment there.
You got a fair gripe.
Self-inflicted wounds, I would say. But yeah, now we're both transplanted in Portland. Kind of maybe eyeing some Blazers.
Definitely.
Kind of get their stuff together.
There are those Dame rumors going around right now as well.
There are, and as those heat up, we will be right in the mix of it. So we'll have all the takes. We'll be ready for that. But at the moment, it's simmering. So we may not get to that this week.
Yeah, we're the tail end of the baseball season. You're just getting into the football season. So basketball is going to take a little bit of that back burner right now.
Unless something happens.
Something
drops. We'll see.
I've heard terrible rumors of Dame possibly being dealt to the Bulls, and I don't even want that because I just know it's going to kill Dame. I don't want any part of that.
Don't really. Okay, we're not talking about it today, though.
We won't.
But I agree. I don't understand that. It's a lateral move, it feels like to me.
Yeah, you're not moving up. But let's get into our first topic for this episode of Sportslandia. It's the MLB wildcard race right now. The playoffs are a couple weeks away. October, everybody knows it. And things are really starting to heat up over the last month. A lot of fluctuation between the top spot in the wild card to that third spot. And just as a reminder, yes, there are 3 wild card teams now, not just the one.
I do need that. I'm going to need a lot of reminders throughout this discussion.
I figured. Yeah, it's been a few years since you've been around the baseball world. But as a Chicago guy, I've been keeping up with the Cubs for what I think is a lucky season, an offbeat season, in the sense that we weren't really supposed to do anything. And now the Cubs find themselves in a possible chance to make it into the playoffs. And as everybody knows, you just need to get in, and anything can really happen at that point.
100%.
But so much moving parts because a lot of these teams are just playing each other right now, which is kind of strange.
Yeah, and it's 3-game series most of the time with these
most
two.
Most of the time,
so
yeah. Occasionally you'll get like a 4-game series, and then that'll even out with a 2-game series.
That can lead to some big movements within those standings.
Absolutely, and the biggest one is the Cubs were playing the Diamondbacks. They've played them twice in the last 2 weeks, and the Diamondbacks have won, I believe it was 5 of 6.
Ooh.
And so now Arizona sits a half game above the Cubs for the second wild card spot. It's just
that is directly tough to deal with.
Exactly. So there's so many moving parts, and the Diamondbacks are good. They went through a bit of a slump. There was a point where they were only a half game back behind the Dodgers, which we all know the juggernaut that is the LA Dodgers.
Even I know that.
Yes. And it's funny enough, they had that meme where just like, oh, it'd be a shame if something happened, and the Diamondbacks were behind the Dodgers, and then they lost. I think like 7 out of 10, fell back, but have come back to earth in a sense for them that now that they're second in the wild card. The Cubs, their starting pitching fell off. They were relying a lot on their bullpen situation, and 2 of their best bullpen arms now have been sent to the IL, just mainly for fatigue, not for like real injuries, thankfully.
Sure.
Nobody wants any injuries to happen ever, but fatigue is a factor. You're throwing guys
playing
3-4 times
200 games a season or whatever.
It's 162, but and you get one off day every 2-3 weeks maybe.
Yeah.
So it's a real fatigue factor, and this it's a shocking season for the Cubs because up until about a week and a half before the deadline, it was all sell. They were going to sell Belly, possibly sell Stroman. You're going to keep Dansby Swanson because you had him on, I think it's like a 5-year contract right now. But they went on a 10-game win streak.
Wow.
And it changed everything. They went from deep into the wild card positions into a top 3 spot. And since then, they've played about 500 baseball. They're playing bad teams right now, though, and not
need to take advantage of that.
Exactly.
Oh.
They're not capitalizing on it. So, they lost to the Rockies at one point. That's the worst team in the league right now. They lost to the Pirates, which is also a bad team in their own division. So, they've started to clean some things up, but people need to get healthy and go in the right direction. The Marlins are hot on their heels. They're only a game back.
Yeah.
And people have sort of slept on the Marlins a lot this year. A team that is not known for success.
No.
But when they've made it into the playoffs, they've had a lot of success.
Okay.
Mainly, they've only been to the playoffs, I think, 3 times, but they've won the World Series twice.
Wow.
97
That's a high
and
percentage.
03. So, so they're sneaky good. They could come back in, and then you can't sleep on the Reds. The Reds are the hot young team right now in the NL Central. Ellie De La Cruz was a name that was up for Rookie of the Year. He has sort of teetered off a bit, but that's sort of normal for rookies where
bit of an ebb and flow.
Yeah, you're going to get those first few weeks where nobody knows how to throw to you, and then everybody gets the tape.
You get on the scouting report.
Exactly. He chases sliders low and away, and so it's just he is sort of evened out, but man, he's an electric player, and you get that type of atmosphere in the playoffs. Again, anything can really happen.
Yeah.
It'd be great to see Joey Votto get one more chance in Cincinnati, too, since he's in his final year with them. And there's just so many fun storylines that go along with this wild card race that is going on right now. And then on the other side of things, like in the American League right now, a huge series coming up between the Seattle Mariners and the Houston Astros. Both these teams are in the fight for the final wild card spot in the AL. Wow. And it's a half-game difference, and they're about to have a 3-game series this week, starting today, which is September 25th.
That is huge.
So Mariners are trying to go to the playoffs for, I think it's going to be the 6th time in their 48 seasons, and the first time they've gone back-to-back since, I think, the early 2000s.
Wow, yeah, I was about to say, they've had some troubled history recently, but they did just make it last year.
They made it last year because they've
got some young guns, even I've heard some names about.
Julio Rodriguez, and then you got Luis Castillo, who they traded for last year at the deadline, that has helped kind of solidify the starting rotation for them. He has had some ups and downs as well, but it's very hard to be consistently good for every single start that you go out there. I mean, for a starter, you're doing it 32 times a year.
It brings a new meaning to the word consistency when it's
and you're doing it
that many games
every 4 or 5 days. So it's not an everyday situation like your shortstop. But, there are some good and bad things about that. I'd love to hear your opinion about it. A hitter goes through a slump, and usually it's like, all right, maybe you do need a day off to just not think about baseball.
Yeah.
Where a pitcher might think, well, I'm sitting here for 4 or 5 days after that terrible start. What do I need to do to change it? It's like one wants to get back out on the field to immediately change their outcome. The other one's like, I can't look at another pitch right now. I need to take a step back, look at some of my tape. What do I need to change because I'm chasing too much or I'm just too much in my own head that just a simple break would do wonders.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of that is probably they are used to their schedule and the other schedule is so different that maybe just flip it. Like one guy's on every single day, like you said, and wants that time off. One guy has to sit and think about the results of that for so long, wants to get back out there. So yeah, having those kind of two mindsets be flipped can obviously, can change a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's needless to say, it's going to be an exciting final 2 weeks to the baseball season. I mean, personally, I've got no real affiliation to anybody in the American League.
Well, I was gonna ask, is there like a Cinderella America team? Like, is that kind of where the Mariners fit in? I know people like to.
I mean, it's
the tough history. People want to see them win, kind of thing.
It's easy to.
Is there a team there?
To just try to put down the Houston Astros after
That's the
their
other thing?
history.
Like,
I mean, I don't think anybody wants to see them have their continued success after
certainly not
their history over the last 5 years.
And that's usually I get into baseball when it becomes a national story and
there's controversy.
It brings baseball to me. Yeah, it's usually one of the cheating things, one of the steroidsy things, or one of the bad tradesy type things. So yeah, to me it would seem. Everybody would want the Mariners to beat the Astros in that series and make it to the playoffs. So we'll see.
Yeah, the only other teams I could really think of, I mean, the Rays have been good. Lately, they've been good. They started out as the hottest team in baseball this season. Lately, they're only 5-5, over their last 10, so they've been playing about 500 baseball. But that's a team that's never won the World Series. I mean, the Mariners have never won the World Series either.
Sure.
So you got two teams that could possibly win their first World Series ever. And I think that is a more intriguing story to try to, I don't want to say
100%.
chase, but something to keep an eye on more than anything. I know the Rangers are leading the AL West. They've never won the World Series either.
Sure.
So it's...
What is the percentage of teams that haven't won the World Series in the MLB? Because I feel like, obviously, with the history that 1 or 2 or 3 teams had in the early years of baseball, winning everything like the Yankees did, the numbers must be a lot higher of teams that haven't actually even won a World Series in baseball compared to maybe some other leagues.
I'm looking at the wild card race right now. I've got 4 teams that have never won the World Series. 5 with the Angels.
Interesting.
I mean, even the Nationals, who are a new team that came around and new. I'm using that loosely because they came around in 2004, I think was their first season. Yeah, but they won the World Series back in 2019.
Yeah.
The Brewers have never won, so that's 6. They're currently leading the division in the NL Central with the Cubs and all that stuff.
Interesting.
So right now it's Rockies, Padres, the Brewers.
It's gotta be a lot.
Everybody in the NL East has won. The Angels haven't won. The Mariners haven't won. The Rangers haven't won. So that's 3 teams in the AL West alone that have never won, and then the Tampa Bay Rays. Otherwise, every other team has won the World Series at least once in their franchise. So that's 6 teams out of your 30.
Yeah.
I mean, that's... I never did fractions down to the 6th, but...
Isn't that 1/5? 6 out of 30? Let's go with that.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, you are right. What the heck? Yeah, no, that's 20% of the league that still hasn't won a World Series then. And you've got 3 teams that possibly could make the playoffs and change that this year.
From an outside baseball's perspective, that's always a little bit of extra interest, I will say.
Yeah, I mean, there's no super long droughts that you're looking at now where, the Cubs in 2016, they hadn't won it in 108 years. And even in that same World Series, at the time, the Cleveland Indians, now the Guardians, they hadn't won one since the 40s. So, there was quite a long...
The droughts is a big thing with baseball.
100%. And because there's just... Because of the long season and having to sustain success, a lot of teams just can't do it.
No.
And so
Makes sense.
You'll find out that some of these teams are constantly rotating on, I need to trade these players to try to get some pieces back. Oakland. But, that's just how they run their business, small market. Occasionally
See if
they'll
they're there
take
for
that
that much
gamble.
longer.
Yeah. Well, let's...
Quick hits on baseball before we go off baseball.
Yeah.
So, from an outside baseball perspective, once again, the Angels seems like have maybe the two best players in baseball. How are they never even relevant at all?
I would say West Coast baseball is kind of dead to most of the market. And when I say that, it's...
What does that mean? Like attracting other players to come play for them?
No, I just mean like how late games are. People aren't focusing on them as much.
But also they're not winning.
They're also not winning.
That's the thing.
But like...
If people watch them or not.
The funny thing is you always see the random stats on Twitter where it's... Oh, Mike Trout went 3 for 4 with 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. Shohei Ohtani on the mound.
Now at this point.
Yeah. Yes. Shohei Ohtani went 7 innings and struck out 10, and the Angels lost 7-5.
Yeah,
it's just like what is going on here? I mean, 2 players don't make a full team.
Probably in this sport more than any other.
Yeah.
Right. Like if this was basketball, they'd be in the playoffs and the finals. With
Mike Trout can hit 200 doubles in a season. That's a made-up number, by the way. Can hit 200 doubles in a season, but if nobody hits him in. If nobody hits him in, then you're not going to be winning any games.
For sure.
And if you have your 2 best players go back to back in the lineup, and there's nobody else that's going to consistently get on base or move guys over, you're not going to win many games, even if you do have 2 of the most electric players in the game.
Yeah, it'll be curious to see if Ohtani stays there. What happens there?
I think he's moving. There's no way he's staying because he wants to win.
It's just money versus winning, I guess, right at that point.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to get money anywhere.
He's going to get money anywhere, but like he rumor is he wants to stay on the West Coast, but he's open to going other places if the money is more. And you also have to remember that he's not going to be pitching this next year because he just had surgery on his elbow. So he'll be strictly a designated hitter or outfielder, depending on what he wants to do. But he'll only be hitting for the most part next year.
Well, speaking of West Coast and potential places he could go, that leads into my next kind of quick hit.
Yeah.
Are the Dodgers again the favorite? And I guess sidebar, are they a potential candidate for Ohtani? I assume they have the money. They're also West Coast.
Yeah.
They seem to always get the big players when they want to.
That's the perk of not having the salary cap in baseball. You can spend as much money as you want, all guaranteed.
I'm sure we can go on a tangent on that one day because that's a whole thing as well for me.
I mean, the Dodgers are always going to be up there. They're not the juggernaut that they've been over the last 4, 5, 6 years, but still a very strong baseball team. I mean, they're going to be pushing 100 wins. They're at 96 and 59 right now.
Wow.
I think the favorite is the Braves.
Okay. Atlanta.
Yeah. 100 wins right now. They're 156. They've got Ronald Acuna Jr., who's also one of the most electric players in baseball right now. I did see online that people were comparing. They were saying they'd want to take Ronald Acuna Jr. over Aaron Judge's season last year.
Wow.
I'm on the fence about it.
Okay.
If you want raw power, then you go Aaron Judge with his. I think he had 63 home runs.
Right.
Or 62 home runs, and he was like 11-9 WAR, where Acuna is doing more to get on base and move himself over with stolen bases, where I think that allows you to play a different game of baseball.
Yeah.
I personally would lean towards Ronald Acuna Jr.
Okay. Bit of a style question.
It definitely is.
Okay.
Definitely is more of a style question between those two guys.
Interesting.
But yeah, as going back to your question though, my favorite would probably be the Braves.
Okay.
They're up there. Or
mark it down.
Sneaky.
Dark horse?
I love the Orioles.
Oh. Now that's also kind of a tortured franchise.
That absolutely is a tortured franchise.
Have they won the World Series?
Yes, they have. Back in the 70s.
Horsey days?
70s.
Oh, yeah, they had cars by then. Okay. The 1970s,
yes, 1970s,
okay,
not the 1870s.
Well, I don't know. I just wanted to check.
Back then, actually, believe it or not, you've probably heard me say this on one of our baseball games at UP, the Baltimore Orioles actually were originally the New York Yankees.
Whoa.
And then they moved towns,
Is this
changed
a
the
Ravens
name.
Colts situation?
Sort of, yeah. But this was early 1900s.
Who's counting those titles? So those
No,
are still
well,
Yankees titles?
No, those don't go towards the Yankees because there were two different teams. There was the the Knickerbockers, and then the Hilltoppers were the names. They weren't the Yankees
The
yet.
Hilltoppers.
They played on top of a hill.
Great name.
They played on top of a hill.
That's such an old school baseball name.
Exactly.
That's fun.
And then, so they moved to Baltimore and became the Orioles at that point, and then the Knickerbockers changed to the Yankees at one
became
point.
the Knicks. They changed sports.
Yes, they changed sports.
That's
Exactly.
an
That's the other thing is like you're gonna get so many. If you look back at the old team names, there's so many that overlap with each other that it just like doesn't.
Oh, it gets even more confusing.
Yeah.
I had this recently with the NBA with the Hornets and the Pelicans
and that's switching.
and the Bobcats.
Yeah.
And there was a bit of a switcheroo there where one team actually was the other. And then
the Charlotte Hornets moved to New Orleans.
Went to a whole hole one day.
And then they still wanted to franchise in Charlotte after moving the Hornets. So they became the Bobcats. And then everybody's like, well, we don't want to be the Hornets anymore in New Orleans. It became the Pelicans. And then I don't know if they bought the rights back or what, because that was the original franchise.
Yeah.
But
it got real messy.
It really did. And then the Bobcats, the name became defunct like within a decade, I want to say.
Yeah.
And then they went back.
Not a lot of great Bobcat memories. So.
Adam Morrison, bro.
Like I said.
Emeka Okafor.
Not a lot of great Bobcat memories.
All right, you had one more quick hit question
I
on
did.
MLB.
It's maybe just a lament, I would say, on my own baseball fandom, because I was a Red Sox fan. I also remember my dad trying to keep me awake when we were breaking the drought in 04, right? Oh, against the Yankees, the comeback.
4 days in October, one of the greatest documentaries ever.
Fantastic, 30 for 30. Big fan of all that. And then, came into the new era of baseball. We had Mookie Betts, one of the funnest guys in the league. Big fan of him, won another World Series. And then they traded him. Basically forced him out of town. Couldn't even tell you what they got back because it doesn't matter. But for me, it's like
Nothing.
If you can't, yes, that's the other problem. If you're not raising up your own guys to be a star in your own city and winning and then keeping them on, what is the point of me being a fan at that point? If you're just trying to cut money costs and
you lose a connection with the team.
Exactly. And now I got to watch this guy go win in LA for years and years. So when they traded Mookie, I basically rescinded and turned in my baseball card and my Red Sox card specifically and said I will no longer support this. And now it's come full circle, and that GM has been fired, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he got fired, I want to say last week, maybe.
So, maybe that's a great thing.
Yeah, that's a step in the right direction.
Still not going to take that card out. I
can't blame you. I mean, that's tough. I know, being the Cubs fan that I am, even they didn't want to pay Chris Bryant. They didn't want to pay Anthony Rizzo.
Well, this is the other thing I was going to ask was after you guys won it all, there was a big sale, right?
It was a couple years later. But there was a little bit of a difference in the fact that, yes, there was that love for the guys because they ended that drought and great memories for me personally. But the production was falling off.
Sure.
They weren't, even though Chris Bryant was the NL MVP that World Series year, he was the NL Rookie of the year before.
Crazy.
He was the minor league baseball player of the year before he got called up. He had all those accolades, but then some injuries caught up with him, and he wasn't hitting the same.
Right.
And as much as I love Javi Baez and his glove-flashing defense, he's chasing every pitch under the sun and striking out at a high clip, and it's just that's not really worth it for our team. I love the exciting plays.
That sale made a lot more sense to me
Correct.
Than the Mookie sale, where it's you're at that point you've won, the team's kind of transitioning. Let's sell off the pieces and start a rebuild.
Backing into the playoffs at that point.
Yeah, whereas the Red Sox, it was just they
came
were
off a World
trying
Series.
to pretend they were playing Moneyball or something, and read a bunch of statistics on not to pay guys over 30, not realizing this was the exception to the rule, basically, and he could play all these different positions and still hit and do all these things. So, I don't know what it is that they're gonna have to do to bring me back. It's probably not really gonna be anything. That one was a tough one to get over.
What about a playoff run? Would that help you?
No.
Nope. What if they?
I don't know what they could do to get me back. I'm kind of over it.
They trade for a young star. They trade for a young star.
No.
They trade.
What are they gonna do with that young star in a couple of years? Let him walk again? How am I supposed to ever trust him again?
Well, it'll be a new GM, so who knows?
Well, maybe
they'll actually want to pay.
Same owners, right? So
yeah.
I think they're getting by a little bit by blaming everything on the GM. Anyways.
Well, yeah, it's always the easy scapegoat for everything.
Yes.
In the professional world.
Yeah, it's like
you know what it sounds like? You got jaded because it was no longer a fun fandom thing. You saw how bad the business is.
Probably, yeah. And especially as a very casual baseball fan, like having Mookie on the team and rooting for Mookie was like most of my expression of being a Red Sox fan. So once they got rid of him and it just became like this weird rebuild, and then obviously all the blowback from the trade keeps going continually.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was already, I'm sort of on the fence as far as baseball. It's a big time commitment, obviously, with all these things. So I just kind of ended up moving into different directions. So I'll keep you updated if I don't know what they would have to do to bring me back, but I guess it's not outside the realm of possibility entirely.
Ohtani?
Well, yeah, I don't know. That'd be interesting.
He's just an exciting player in baseball in general.
He is the one time I recently turned on a baseball game. I turned on the TV and a baseball game was on, I should say. And I didn't immediately change the channel because he is. It's like one of the most interesting things in sports to see somebody play both sides like that.
Yeah.
To watch him pitch and to think about his mentality as a batter when he's pitching and then his mentality as a pitcher when he's batting and like having both those sides and getting to see him pitch and then the inning comes back and now he's batting and then he goes back to like that is exciting stuff.
And I love the fact that he's not like a slap hitter like you kind of see from guys from Japan where they make a lot of contact but they don't have a lot of power. Where Ohtani was hitting 40 plus home runs and driving in people and he was a bona fide hitter. Yeah. Like there's no other way around it. I mean, productive on the mound and at the plate.
It's a bummer he got hurt because he's the thing that could draw me back into baseball as a whole. I will say, for sure.
What about Mike Trout? Just take some of these.
I love the memes. The memes are funny. Okay, last thing for baseball.
Yeah.
I think this is a question for you. This Chicago Cubs team has to be the most successful of all your Chicago fandoms
right now
in your lifetime.
In my lifetime?
Well.
In my lifetime?
Were you born during Jordan? I guess that's the only other thing.
Technically, I was born...
Post-Jordan, is this the most successful Chicago?
No, not at all. The Blackhawks. Three Stanley Cups in 5 years.
Okay, all right.
6 years, actually.
Well, this is good. I need this education.
Yeah, no. But I would say the Blackhawks. They went through...
That's right. They did have quite a run
3
there.
Stanley Cups, including... Kane and Taves.
Harry Kane.
Patrick Kane. Patty Boy Kane.
All right, good. I'm glad I know now.
Yeah, that. Other than that...
It's Blackhawks Cubs. Jay Cutler NFC Championship.
Just a solo season.
I saw you deflate as I said Jay Cutler.
Yeah. Because
Devin Hester. Oh no, the Rex Grossman year, maybe. Devin Hester. Those are good times.
I'll give that year to Kyle Orton. I won't even give that one to Rex Grossman.
Kyle Orton's so good, man.
Criminally underrated.
He's solid, I will say.
Like, if you needed somebody to go in there and be like, hey, we need at least 200 yards passing, maybe a couple touchdowns. If you throw an interception, that's fine, but keep us competitive. And he did that everywhere.
I always thought he was a great. If your team was going sideways and you needed to make the playoffs, if he came in, he could probably get you there.
Yeah.
Maybe win you a game.
Yeah. He's not going to win you the Super Bowl or anything.
He might have on that Nick Foles team, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Oh, like the
that
Eagles.
Nick Foles Eagles team, if they had Kyle Orton, I think it's right there.
Probably could have done that.
It's right there, considering Matt Patricia.
But yeah.
Speaking of football.
Yeah, no, I think that's it though. I think you're right. The Cubs is probably the most successful run of 2015 to like 2020, basically. That 5 years.
This millennium.
Yeah.
Or did the Blackhawks win this millennium as well? Those were mid 2000s.
2010, 13, and 15.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm way off. Well, good to know.
Yeah, all right.
It's not, now that we've talked about the good Chicago teams.
Yeah, let's go to
I guess first we'll talk about the amateurs, maybe.
Yeah, we're going to move it over to the football side of things. College football had an exciting slate this past weekend.
Yeah, even I was watching.
Yeah. I found time to watch as well.
Yeah.
While having to entertain the wife. So, yeah, if I can find some time to watch some football.
It's a juggling act.
It is. But even I turned on the, let's talk about Dion in Oregon right now.
Yes. Primetime in Colorado.
I think a lot of people thought this
Very
game
hype.
would be...
One scout was there, I saw.
Yes, which I think...
Was probably a product of that Ohio State Notre Dame game where I saw there were like 19 scouts there.
Yeah, because I think Colorado is still very much an unknown.
Yes.
Even though they've had, well, it's technically like one big profile win over TCU, and then a game that they escaped against Colorado State. Not saying it wasn't exciting, because I was certainly tuning in and watching it. But
Colorado State's not a juggernaut.
No, and they were 24-point favorites. I mean, and it took you to double overtime to beat them. But
this was a hype game. This was exciting.
Everybody...
Until it started.
Right. I think everybody in after week one, circled this game. Was like, all right, this one could be pretty hype.
Yeah, at least a good test to see if they're legit. And
they
weren't
not
ready for the
quite
test.
There. Yeah.
But it's early days. I think there's still a lot of hype. I think people will still be there around for them to see what goes on. But that Oregon team. Whew. Bo Nix as well. I think I'm becoming a Bo Nix guy.
I hate to say it, I think I am too.
I
did not like him that much when he was at Auburn.
I kind of did. I watched like one game. I don't even remember what it was, and he was just slinging it and balling, and I was like, "This guy's awesome." And then seeing him on Oregon worked pretty well. I'm intrigued. He's a name I've written down in my book
To draft in.
I don't know. Who can
say?
Who can say?
That's interesting though. I love what he's been doing over at Oregon. My only slight hesitation, and this isn't like a knock on him, he's doing everything he's supposed to be doing, but like timing routes. Everything's about timing. Get the snap, 1 step, 2 step, out.
Yeah.
And it works great because you've got the guys.
It works when you're on rhythm.
Exactly. Now, will that translate to the next level? I think it really depends on where he
100%.
ends up.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't go to Chicago.
Yeah.
Don't go to.
It's a good idea.
Probably Arizona. You don't want to go to.
I don't know. Really.
You definitely don't want to go to Denver right now.
Well, do you or don't you? I mean, it'd be kind of intriguing to go there as a rookie and have Sean Payton as your coach. Obviously, they're a mess right now, but every team at the top is going to be a mess when you're drafting these guys.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. At least you have an offensive mind who's proven he can do stuff there. You maybe have a couple weapons depending who they trade.
Have you seen that
and who
offensive
they keep.
mind work this season yet?
Well, that's hopefully they draft a couple guys. I'm just thinking about offensive minds.
I mean, you've got offensive linemen right now that are complaining that their team hasn't won. Did you see that report?
Yeah, I watched the video of the guy in the locker room
very,
talking.
very frustrated. He's been there for 7 years and says all we do is lose.
As a Patriots fan, I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, it looks great for you, yeah.
Especially how much battling we did with them when they had Peyton, when they were good, and then it is kind of... Although, to be fair, that also could be a Patriots lineman making that exact same speech over these last couple of years, so I don't want to harp on it too bad, because we might be making that speech soon. But yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with Colorado and Dion, and whether or not this is a temporary spot or a jumping point to the next one, or what's going to happen there.
I think he's going to stick around a little bit. I think he wants to actually establish himself. Like he could have
2 years, 3 years, 2 years. I would say yes. Beyond that, I don't know.
It would depend on how his team does in those 2 or 3 years. Like he's not going to jump ship if the team is 500 and still like growing.
Right. He would. I think you're right, because I think he would need to create that program into something pretty substantial to get the next job.
Correct. Because everybody knows that when he took over at Colorado, it was a dumpster fire, really.
Yeah, the Oregon coach before the season said...
It was like, they haven't won anything.
Yeah, why do I care that they're leaving the Pac-12? Which is kind of my next point in this, which is looking at this slate and watching these games. What an incredible year for the Pac-12. And what a bummer that it's going to be the Pac-2 after. They had probably 8 teams ranked this weekend. They had Washington State, Oregon State playing each other. They had Colorado and Oregon playing each other, both ranked. They've obviously got USC up at the top with Caleb Williams.
Utah as well.
I think UCLA and Utah were both ranked playing each other. And it's just I was actually kind of getting into it, and it's just all going to be gone, and all the rivalries are going to die.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm a little worried about this whole realignment thing. As a casual, it feels like it's either going to make me more casual or I'm just going to watch the big games, which I don't know. I'm of two minds about it. I'm already missing those little rivalries that we're maybe not going to get anymore.
Yeah, I think the Pac-12 is its own brand, as in just like it.
Unfortunately,
very heavily involved. And it goes with the region. When I say this, it's like everybody cares about the Pac-12 on the West Coast, where
Yes. Less so.
people on the East Coast, and there's a reason for it,
They're
because
already
there's
asleep.
one, they're already asleep, yes, but two, because the institutions on the West Coast are few and far between.
Yes.
Where you go East Coast, you've got ACC, you've got the Big East, you've got
both Big 10,
SEC,
12s,
Big Ten.
whatever.
Yeah, like 4 of those conferences are right there basically.
Yeah.
All along the East Coast. And then on the West Coast, you have the Pac-12.
Couple juggernauts, yeah. Small
That's it.
schools.
Like
yeah.
you've got
Got USC, you've got a bit of an Oregon run there.
you
Stanford's good in
could
other
say that
sports.
San Diego State in the Mountain West Conference has made some moves. Boise State, yes, but
Yeah.
like
Minor moves.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's not the big name draw that you're going to be having.
Yeah.
So I think people will be intrigued to see UCLA, USC, Washington, and Oregon play Smash Mouth Midwest Big Ten football.
Sure.
They won't be playing it. They'll be playing against it.
Yeah.
Like I would love to see USC try to go into Kinnick Stadium at Iowa in the middle of November in a blackout game. And just like it's a different atmosphere. I think there's going to be a learning curve for them.
Right.
I really don't love realignment in general. It's become a cash grab.
That's the big thing. Is it's the college football money so surpasses all the other college sports that it feels like the other sports especially are kind of going to be hurt by this, by being dragged into these other conferences because of the football money. I heard this recently. Part of me wishes that football was kind of just its own entity.
I was about to say, yeah.
And like maybe there's a big football league that everybody tries to get in, or maybe there's more alignment within that. But that's why this is all happening. It's not the other stuff. And it makes a lot more sense for all these Pac-12 teams in volleyball or soccer or whatever it might be, baseball, to still be playing in these little small regional. Like, to have all of their teams now fly to Iowa or Michigan for
track and field, when you've got a team,
series.
you've got a team of 50-plus kids for your
have
track.
Oregon State like an hour down the road, and we're gonna fly to Florida instead. Like,
we got to go to Piscataway, New Jersey this week, guys.
The football. There's certainly an argument for maybe that to be a little bit more separate, and then I can maybe get my head around it a little bit more.
Yeah, there's so many different schools where, like I think about when I went to school at Central Michigan, Missouri, when they transitioned to the SEC.
Yeah.
They don't have wrestling. Missouri was in our conference for wrestling.
Yeah, it's gonna get more twisted and turned.
Like you could have done what you just said though, like football wise. You guys want to go move on? Fine. You can make your television money. Still going to come back to the university. We can still disperse it amongst our athletes or whatever. I mean, part of this does fall in the Pac-12 because they got a little greedy and didn't want to take a certain amount of money because they thought it was below them. But guess what? It's going to sound bad. You're an inferior product to the SEC and the Big Ten sometimes.
It's just true. If we're just strictly talking college football, like, look at the numbers. Like, pretty much everybody's inferior to the SEC.
How many times has the Pac-12 made it to the college football playoff since it's been implemented?
2, 3?
Once, I think. And it was Oregon.
Oregon, yeah. Made a couple championships way back in the day, but
that was before the playoff, though.
Yes.
So, like, you could have realigned it to just do football because that's what everybody wants to do right now.
That's what the money's driving.
Nobody's like, there's only a handful of people who are like, I want to change for basketball. Like, Gonzaga wants to leave for basketball.
Yeah.
That I sort of understand. But, like, I'm not seeing, UCLA itching to want to go play Big Ten basketball or anything else like that. Like, it's a strong basketball conference. Why are you trying to
you see
merge
this have
that
recent success even in the tournament. Like,
it's become, like I said, everything's a cash grab for them. Where can I get the most money to bring it back in? Yes, some of it has to deal with the debt that you run into because a lot of athletic programs run in the red just because of travel and all that other stuff. So, you want to bring in some money, but that still doesn't change the fact that you could have made this like a football-only move. You didn't have to dissolve the entire conference.
Yeah, and I certainly don't exactly trust the NCAA to have done this properly, and it certainly doesn't seem like they have. So
I have zero trust in the NCAA.
Yeah, which is justified. So we'll kind of see where these things go. Obviously, it's not going to happen for 2 years, maybe.
No, I think it changes next year.
Or is it next year?
It's next year, yeah.
So, but it's a bummer because you look at it and it's like this could be the Pac-12's best year, like, and then it's all going to blow up after that.
Yeah.
So, hopefully they'll go all out. We'll get 2 or 3 of them in the college football playoffs, and then
and I love
everyone will change their mind and it'll be good.
I love the loophole. Loophole.
Oh, a loophole
for the Pac-2.
Yeah,
you can still be a major conference. You get a
this.
grace period, I think, of 2 years to try to get more institutions to come back in to keep your conference.
This is the funniest outcome, for sure.
Absolutely, and the fact that Oregon State and Washington State sued the rest of the schools in the Pac-12 at their board members. Did you not hear about this?
I might have slipped by me.
Oh, okay. Those 2 institutions sued the rest of the schools in Pac-12 because the schools that already announced that they were leaving, in their contract, they said as soon as you leave, you no longer have a voice on the board.
Oh.
And so all these schools are like, no, like, we don't want to have this change yet, and all this other stuff. And Oregon State, Washington said, tough.
We decide everything now?
It's just us 2 that are in this conference. You guys already said, verbally and contractually, you are leaving the conference. You no longer have a voice at the board. And so it is just Oregon State and Washington State that now have a voice on what the Pac-12 can do, because the other schools have already announced a year and a half in advance that they were going to be leaving.
So just the announcement of them leaving was enough, not the act of leaving?
It was one or the other.
Or is that okay?
It was one or the other. It had to be publicly known that you were leaving.
Sure. Okay.
And they had already done that.
What can they? Okay, so what is that going to lead to?
That leads to Oregon State and Washington State controlling their own destiny to add whatever institutions that they would like. Now, obviously, the other institutions have to agree to join the Pac-2.
Sure.
But money, revenue sharing for, like, I believe the rest of this year, like, they can take advantage of that.
I'm curious what will happen. I mean, it seems much more likely those 2 teams will find new homes than it does finding 10 new people to move in to their neighborhood.
I think you need to have at least 8 teams.
The initial jokes around my Idaho friends were all, Boise State's finally going to make it into the Pac-12. It's just a little bit late. So that would be funny. Maybe they'll go to the Mountain West. Maybe we'll see some other things happen. I don't know.
I think what's going to happen is they're probably going to go to the Mountain West.
It seems likely.
Because the Big 12 would have already reached out. The Big 10, I think you could make a case.
Names of those conferences now too, right?
Well, Big 10 hasn't been Big 10 since the 80s when they brought in Penn State to come. They've been before they brought in Rutgers and all that. They were the Big 11 technically because Penn State was the 11th school back in the 80s.
Okay, if those 2 are going to be 2 of the main 4 conferences, we need to have different names for them, or at least have the right number. I can't keep track.
Big 20.
Sure, just merge them. So merge the whole thing.
Yeah.
Be a Premier League or something. So
what I was going to say, though, is I wouldn't be shocked to see Big 10 in the next year or so being like, well, you know what? Maybe there is some value to bring in the viewership in Pullman for Washington State and the viewership from Corvallis, because you already have the 2 schools in the other 2 major institutions in those 2 states. Like, why would you exclude them?
Bring those rivalries back a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, like, Oregon State basketball struggled. Their football team did good last year. They
did have a good run in the tournament a couple years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
I think in the Elite 8.
I believe it was the Elite 8, yeah. And Washington State has had their fair share of success in multiple athletic situations.
Sure.
So,
like, produced Gardner Minshew. I mean, it's a pretty big success right there.
I like that.
Best backup in the league.
Except he Orlovsky this weekend. Well, actually, that's a good transition. Let's bring it over to the professional side of things. Now that we've discussed the whole Pac-2 situation, which I want one of those shirts, by the way.
Pac-2?
I would love a Pac-2 shirt.
It'd be great.
This NFL slate this week.
Oh, yeah.
Up and down.
Pull it up.
I can't believe some of the scores that came out of this.
Well, there was one big score, wasn't there?
There was 70-20.
Miami Dolphins
taking down the Denver Broncos and Sean Payton, who now falls to 0-3 after saying Nathaniel Hackett was probably the worst coaching job, and he was at least 2-1.
Yeah, I don't know that he was wrong. I just think this team is also pretty bad.
Yeah, I just don't think the Broncos are a very good football team in general.
All around, it's tough. Like, the offense isn't horrible, but obviously the defense kind of is. But this is about the Dolphins. Like, this is insane. I mean, what Mike McDaniel's done with the team, with the playmakers they have, his ability to scheme guys up. Devon Achane, obviously, insane kind of a debut for him after playing a little bit in the second game, scratching the first game. Over 200 yards, 4 touchdowns. Like, he just schemes him up so well. Obviously, Raheem Mostert, he's getting 35 fantasy points or whatever it is, 4 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill. Jalen Waddle didn't even play in this game.
That was the thing I was going to bring up. One of your most electric players was not even on the field, and you still put up.
I mean, most of their guys didn't even play in like half the third quarter or the fourth quarter.
I heard the White Lotus was out there.
Right. White Lotus was putting up some points. So I don't know. They're terrifying. I feel even better about the Pats defense considering we held them to 24 points. Like, the other two teams have not even gotten close to that. So I feel better about that.
Now, are the Bills sweating a little bit?
Because that's next week, right?
Yeah.
That's
and I asked that
100%.
because
100%.
I think the biggest question mark on Miami is the consistency of Tua.
The health of Tua, I would say.
Yeah, your best availability is availability.
100%.
He's staying healthy.
He has become much more consistent. I mean, I once again credit most of all of this to Mike McDaniel, like putting him in
100%,
fantastic situations. I think I think many different quarterbacks probably could quarterback this team and get them. Honestly, probably get them to 70 points. Like he
was 20 for 20 in the first half.
Was quite nice.
That was impressive.
Again, he's being put in the perfect plays, and he is executing it. I'm also the salty guy who traded Tua, so I'm trying to rationalize
in the fantasy
that it's not a complete disaster that I traded him right before he went off. But luckily I drafted Devon Achane, so I can hopefully get a little bit of that back. But yeah, the Dolphins look terrifying. The offense looks scary. Mike McDaniel is like maybe I don't know if it's like scariest or best, but offensive genius rankings wise, it's probably got to be the top of the top right now.
Shanahan and McDaniel, yeah.
And he's above them right now.
He comes from the McDaniel tree.
Of course.
Or the Shanahan tree, excuse me.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, what he's been able to do is kind of absolutely insane. Obviously, Shanahan's still putting up good stuff. I can't tell if Brock Purdy's any good, and that's a credit to Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
But he's still winning with him as he's missing throws to Debo and whatnot. So, yeah, impressive win by the Dolphins. As an AFC East fan, it scares me. But, and they play the Bills next week, and I think that'll be a good one.
Yeah, that'll be another primetime matchup.
The Bills seem like they've righted the ship a bit.
Yeah, I think that first week, it's sort of, there were a lot of storylines going into that.
I think you see Zach Wilson come in the game and you take your foot off the gas as well. That's got to be a big part of it.
Yeah.
Also, Josh Allen was just insane that game. Just wanted every throw every time. Right. And it's like, you could check down, my guy.
Yeah, trying to prove that he's got the strongest arm in the league. And
Yeah. Throwing it into triple coverage multiple times. So.
But yeah, 2-1, they've righted the ship. They won 37-3. I mean, they destroyed the Washington Commanders this past weekend.
Yeah.
Which I think also a bit eye-opening. Not that I think the Commanders are world beaters or anything like that, but what I thought Bieniemy had done in the first couple of weeks was nice with basically a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, his fantasy line was not so good. I think he was below 0.
Sam Howell was this week? Well, yeah, it was not a great week for him. But in general, to the start of his career, though, I mean, he's done some nice things.
His first 2 games were pretty solid for a fifth-round kind of no-name
guy. I just said it, just like basically a rookie. He played 1 game last year. Yeah. So it's not... And he started out as a third-string quarterback, so you're not getting those reps with the first team throughout the regular season.
He's basically redshirted.
Yeah. So I think the Commanders will be okay. I think they're the third best team in that division right now. You've got the Eagles and the Cowboys, and then the Giants are the Giants. I mean, they're. You think the Giants are better than the Commanders?
They're very. Streaky.
They had 1 good half.
They're very streaky, I will say. I don't know.
I'm not sold on the Giants.
Probably not. They don't really have that many weapons, especially with Saquon out.
They don't.
And Daniel Jones, I can't tell sometimes.
That's the biggest question mark for me. probably, like, out of the contracts that were signed this past year,
Yeah.
that is the biggest question mark. Like, I understand Daniel Jones sort of pressed, this is going to be bad phrasing probably, but pressed his luck in the sense of, like, you guys don't have anybody else. Who else are you going to pay to be your quarterback right now?
He played it out well. I just worry that last year was the outlier, not the model going forward.
I think that's exactly what it was.
It was, and he's talented. He can run. He had Dable there, but I mean, they really don't have anything else go. Like Darren Waller, I guess, is their best kind of pass catcher. I don't.
Or how about?
I don't.
I mean, you could have like Slayton, I guess. Hodgins.
Yeah, it's the third straight year of like Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard.
Yeah,
whatever.
But, like,
Matt Breida. Okay.
I forgot about that name. Yeah.
How could you? He ends up being the starter every week, every season for these guys because Saquon goes out. So yeah, you might be right. The 37-3 to stare at me in the face isn't great, but
it's also against one of the best teams that we've thought about in the NFL over the last 3-4 years.
I like the weapons better in Washington.
100%. McLaurin, you got Robinson.
Yeah. Even Jahan Dotson.
Yeah, Dotson. That was the name that I was forgetting right there. Like they have pieces.
Yeah, it doesn't really feel the same in Washington. They're in New York. Either New York team. Speaking of the other New York team, what a disgusting game Patriots-Jets was.
15-10.
Bit of a monsoon game. You know, Belichick beat up on Zach Wilson. He didn't have any horrible plays. He sealed the game in the end with us for a safety. That was kind of the horrible play, but he didn't have any horrible turnovers. They didn't really let him have any horrible turnovers. But
the big kid.
The Patriots just let them hang around. They had like 3 or 4 different chances to finish the game out if they could just get a first down. And they just could not. They just kept punting them the ball back to the point where they got a Hail Mary and it bounced off one of their guys' hands. Like, can we just win a clean game? It doesn't really seem like it, so I don't know.
It starts with one, though. I mean, sometimes that's what it takes to get some confidence. You said that it was a monsoon game. Obviously, you're going to change how you play a little bit differently for ball security reasons and things like that.
Yeah. Zeke actually showed up pretty well. Like, outplayed Ramondre, which was, I didn't think I'd be saying
How many carries did Ramondre have?
I think they both had about, like, 16.
Okay, yeah. I see that Elliott had 16 carries for 80 yards.
I believe that's kind of what it was looking like.
And Bill's okay with this whole rotating running back thing? I know he's been doing that for the last decade and stuff.
Yeah, the thing we don't have that we've always had is like I was listening to Bill Simmons' podcast earlier and he called it the curse of James White. We just don't have the receiving back anymore after basically having like an incredible line of them for years. We just don't have one. So and everybody else does. We have Ty Montgomery on our roster, which like that is such a throwback.
When you said his name in our group chat, I was like, I forgot that he was in the league.
He was on the team last year and he went on IR. And they kept him around all the way till this year. And he's closer to 35 than he is 30 at this point, I feel like.
Seems like almost a wasted roster spot.
Sure
Although
does.
you said you need the receiving end of things.
But he hasn't been out there much. So, I don't know. Glad we got the win. Would have been rock bottom if we didn't.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's something.
One of the games I had an eye on, I almost slipped up. L.A. and Minnesota.
The drunk coaching bowl.
Yes, the 0-2 lineup.
Someone's got to win.
Could have tied.
It did feel like a game that would go to both teams being too inept to win and they tie. Unfortunately, it was a 4-point difference at the end, so they couldn't quite get there.
No, not quite.
Chargers tried to let them win as many times as they could.
Going for it on 4th and short, deep in their own territory, and then Kirk Cousins just letting the clock run. I don't
Could have just spiked it, decided to run a play, threw a pick on that play, and lost the game?
Yeah. Like, why would you not spike the ball, talk things over with your coach or your offense and what you wanted to do right there to give you the lead?
Kirk Cousins things. I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, Herbert looked fun and amazing. He had one bad throw that actually ended up in a touchdown, weirdly enough, because it, like, went off the defender's hands. And but, like, Vikings, talk about a 180 from a year ago. You were, 11-1 or something in a one-score game last year? Now you're 0-3.
Yeah. Also,
not
very
sustainable.
predictable.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Everyone coming into this year was like, that they're not doing that again.
No.
I don't know. It
was such an anomaly.
I don't even know how they did it then. So, yeah, I mean...
think about it. They beat the Bills on, like, Thanksgiving and, like...
Yeah. I mean, the way they beat the Pats last year was pretty ridiculous as well. So,
Yeah.
not that I'm biased. But yeah, the Chargers just feel like mini Cowboys to me. Great roster held back by coaching. Not so much ownership problems, I guess, as the Cowboys. But I just don't understand why Brandon Staley is the coach of that team. I thought he should have been gone after last year, after getting Mike Williams hurt, and then going into that playoff game. And then, yeah, speak of the devil, Mike Williams is going to be out for the year again after tearing his ACL, which is tough.
You brought in a defensive-minded head coach, and your defense is worse.
That's the problem. It's literally the Office Space meme. Like, what exactly would you say you do here? Like, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm not really seeing it. And he just, it's the decision making and the time management and the fourth down stuff. If you were just like a shitty defensive coach, okay, sure, whatever. But you're like actively kind of hurting our chances in multiple ways. Not resting guys when it's a meaningless game at the end of the regular season last year.
That was a big mistake.
I just don't get it at all. So we want to stay warm and get some reps. So I hope it was worth it. That guy's not playing in the playoffs now.
Yeah, I mean, there's some history that shows like you should rest some guys. There's also somewhere it's like, well, the team isn't always as crisp because they're not playing all together all the time.
I'd rather they play.
It's like I think about certain teams that ended up winning. Like the year the Saints won the Super Bowl, they started the season 13-0. Then they lost their next game. Well, they'd already won the division, and they were just like, Drew, don't go out there.
Turned out they needed Drew Brees in the playoffs.
Oh yeah, kind of important.
Who'd have guessed?
So yeah, when it gets to that level, I think I'm good with resting them that late in the season. Like it just doesn't. There's no
a meaningless game.
There's no real benefits to having your guys out there.
All risk, no reward. So I don't get it at all.
Yeah,
Stupid decision.
Interesting. Let's take a look at the hometown team, the Seattle Seahawks, this week. They won 37-27 against the lowly Panthers, who had the Red Rifle at the quarterback and Andy Dalton.
That's right.
Bryce Young was out with an ankle injury.
Yeah. This was a game I had on the 4-box. You know, loving the 4-box.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't tell you anything that happened in it.
Yeah, it was somewhat uneventful. I mean, I kept my eyes on it because I've got Kenneth Walker on the fantasy team. He had 2 touchdowns, 97 yards.
Yeah.
Thielen showed up. He had 11 catches, 145 yards. Like, they looked like old Adam Thielen from probably like 4 or 5 years ago.
I saw a DJ Chark breakaway during that game.
Yeah, I can't speak on that. I have no idea.
All right.
I mean, maybe. The Panthers are so far removed from my mind most of the time that I'm not paying attention to them.
Yes.
Except for the fact when they lose, because the Bears have their first-round pick. So I'm keeping an eye on that one.
Big time.
But I think the Seahawks, they
righted the ship.
They did, and they did exactly what they needed to do. Rely a little bit more on the run game.
Finally saw the offense get going.
Yes, and that's the big thing. It's like the last couple of weeks, like, well, what's going on here? Let's kind of get things going. Like week 1 didn't look great. Last week they used Walker a bit more than in their actual game plan.
Yes.
And so to see him get used more, not even just rushing the ball, they asked him to catch a couple more now too, which wasn't necessarily his forte last year.
No,
so
not forte joke. I got you. Chicago guy.
Yeah. But they seem to. Gino's kind of taken a regression, but I think we all sort of
compared to last year. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I think we all knew that was probably going to happen. We knew that he could be good. We saw it last year, but was he going to be as crisp and great as he was the year before?
Yeah.
I think everybody thought there was going to be some regression, and you're seeing that a little bit, but it's not detrimental to the team right now in any way.
Yes. Yeah, it seems like they've figured some things out there. They'll be right in that division. It's not the toughest division.
No.
The Niners, and then I guess the resurgent Rams a little bit, but they'll be right in the mix there. Yeah. Speaking of that division, the Cardinals probably the upset of the day.
Absolutely. I mean,
beating up on the Cowboys.
Yeah, they won 28-16 over the Cowboys. The Cowboys looked like world beaters the last couple of weeks.
Yep, they had that Trayvon Diggs injury in practice this week.
Yeah, and you have to think, how much does that affect the defense mentality? Like, people go down. That happens.
Yes. Clearly an effect, though, here. I mean, Cardinals 28 points with Josh Dobbs, James Conner. Not what I would have expected.
No, not at all. And the Cowboys' offense just looked bad.
Yeah,
like Dak was making some bad mistakes. He had that interception
sometimes.
at the very end.
Yeah.
And, this comes from a guy who was boasting in the offseason, I'm going to cut down on my interceptions. Like, well, you need to cut it down in the most important times. Like,
100%.
I don't care if you throw an interception in the first quarter, but if you're throwing it on the game-tying, game-winning drive, like...
Can't have it.
No. You can't at all. And, like, you score that touchdown, you go for... Oh, no, they were down by 12. Never mind. I thought they were down by 8. But still, it's just not the offense that we saw the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and it does feel like after CeeDee Lamb, it's a bit of a toss-up as far as where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Pollard's obviously doing a lot of good stuff, filling in, or not even filling in for Zeke anymore, taking over for
Yeah,
Zeke.
he took over for Zeke, yeah.
But I don't really trust any receiver outside of CD. Like, if he's covered on third down,
This is like
Jake Ferguson.
it's like a health issue too, though. I mean, like Michael Gallup had 92 yards in this game, but he's
I
had.
didn't even know he played anymore.
Yeah, well, exactly. That was my point, though. He's been injured a lot.
Yeah.
So like, all you had was CeeDee Lamb, and then you traded Amari Cooper 2 years ago to the Browns.
Yeah.
So like, that's a name that is no longer there.
Yeah.
I want to say somebody else went to the Texans this past offseason too. Oh, Schultz. Schultz was the other guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, but like
Should be
that's a
able to
safety
replace him.
blanket
Yes.
for Dak over the
Yes.
last few years. But I think this is more of just a hiccup for Dallas than necessarily any type of like downturn for the team. I think it'll
I don't know.
on the defensive side. We'll see how much the Diggs thing is really going to hurt them.
Yeah.
Like one of the plays for the Cardinals was a 54-yard run by Rondale Moore. It's not like it was a pass. It was a run. I mean, like, and you've got a stout defensive line at times. So
Yeah.
like,
I don't know. I'm always ready for the Cowboys to turn into a pumpkin.
oh, me
Always.
too. I think it's
So-
my favorite part of the football season.
It 100% is. I love it. I love it so much. So I can't wait. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, they play us next week. Pats Cowboys. So
It's a get right game for Mac Jones. Don't worry about it.
well, yeah. Hopefully. I mean, it'll be interesting. Yeah, coming off of a bit of a downturn for the Cowboys, it's probably not how I would have wanted to face them. But after losing Diggs, maybe their offense is a little more containable. I'm very excited about, just a quick tangent again on the
Yeah.
Patriots. Christian Gonzalez, our cornerback
yeah,
we
yeah.
drafted in the first round
From Oregon.
from Oregon. He narrated the hype video for Oregon, Colorado,
Nice.
which was kind of cool. I watched that. But he's kind of been incredible to start the year and has been facing like the stiffest competition. Like he's already played Stephon Diggs.
He's a CB1.
Yep, he's CB1. We've had a lot of injuries, so I think he would have been regardless, but we've had some injuries and some airport incidents that almost affected some availability. That is insane. But yeah, he's already played Stephon Diggs in week 1, and then he played Tyreek Hill. And then this last week, he played Garrett Wilson. And now he's going to go play CeeDee Lamb. Like, coming into the season, it was like, oh, this is a murderer's row. It's going to be tough for him. He's defended Tyreek the best of anybody so far. And his numbers have been fantastic, so I'm excited to see what he does against CeeDee. And if he can do it against those guys, he can do it against anybody. So, very excited by that pick.
So you could be seeing the rise of a potential new shutdown corner then. in New
Yeah,
England.
the last time we took a corner in the first round, Devin McCourty.
I'd say that worked out pretty well.
I think it did. So hopefully he can kind of be that staple at that spot, and we can figure some things out. Although it's more figuring out things on offense, but we'll see what happens there. Speaking of offense and lack thereof, it was a bit of a game in the Chiefdom this weekend.
There was. I didn't watch.
I was watching the box because this was the Swifties game in KC versus the Bears. Travis Kelce shot a shot.
And it landed.
It appears to have landed, yeah. Taylor Swift in the box with his mom watching the game.
Yeah.
Fantastic performance from her and from the Chiefs, and only those two.
Yeah, no, that's accurate. That's 100% accurate. There was nothing good about the Bears game. Well, nothing good about the Bears side of that game, I should say. There was a lot of good things going for the Chiefs. I think we all knew that it was done when Taylor Swift walked in the building, but no, I'm kidding. It was.
We all knew pregame at
yeah.
some points that it was probably not going to be a great game.
The world was already burning in Chicago this past week before even stepping foot in the state of Missouri.
Yeah, lost your DC.
Lost
mysterious
DC.
reasons.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on
that
there.
are not related to the FBI officially, which is a thing that you have to say, I guess.
Apparently so. There were no well wishes from anybody from inside the organization to that coach either, so everybody was making speculations about that.
Yeah.
The offense continues to be in shambles. Granted, they've got one actual starter on the offensive line right now. Everybody else has been a backup this past week, but it wasn't a get-right game going to Kansas City. You knew that it was going to be a blowout.
Yeah.
And this kind of falls back on like the Brandon Staley conversation we had. We brought in a defensive head coach, and last year I will give you a break because you had 5 or 6 guys who were starters that are now third string or practice squad guys on other teams. So last year I understand being terrible.
Yeah.
This year you brought in some bigger names, Edmonds and Ngakoue. So you would hope to see some more production. There's nothing. There's no pressure on the defensive line to get to the quarterback, which means 5 seconds feels like an eternity for everybody that's in the defensive backfield. You
can't stay with guys for that long.
No, I was going to say nearly impossible. It is impossible.
Yeah.
And so it's just a continued dumpster fire in Chicago where people, Reddit people on Twitter are all just saying I'm officially fed up with this team. To which case, when have you not said that in the last 15 years?
It does feel like it's reaching,
a real boiling point.
100%.
And this might sound like a broken record, and maybe this doesn't solve everything, but to me it sort of does, especially after some of what I read about the family over this past weekend. The McCaskies need to sell. They need to sell.
Straight to the top.
Straight to the top, dude. They're apathetic. They can say they're upset and angry all they want, but you're not doing anything about it.
No.
And you're not really spending.
Now, this stuff.
Yes.
Small blips.
Yes, and the shady things that have been going on in the background of the Bears. I was reading a story about how Virginia McCaskey screwed over George Halas's kids ownership portions and what is now millions and almost $1 billion worth of dollars by losing their shares through some shady back channels. And
shocks me.
It's disappointing in the fact that there's just no real solution or end in sight anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't want to fire the GM.
Yeah.
I actually like what Ryan Poles has done. I think Matt Eberflus is sort of a clown in the fact that...
Was he hired by this GM, or is he a previous regime's problem?
They went head coach first, and then GM.
Which is the route that most people do it?
Most people hire their GM first and then hire their coach.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. That's actually crazy.
I don't know.
Because
you think about the system of how everything goes down.
That's interesting. Yeah, usually you don't hire your own boss.
I don't think anybody...
Oh, that's exactly how
Yeah, right. I just don't see what Eberflus is doing to help improve this team, and it's certainly not showing on defense. He's been the defensive coordinator the last 2 weeks because Alan Williams hasn't even been in the building once for personal reasons, and he was home, and then obviously he resigned this past week.
Yeah.
And it's just you're not getting anything out of your defense, and that is your specialty.
And I've said this a couple times to you. I very much I want an offensive head coach in this day and age, especially if you have a young quarterback you need to develop. But because most of the time, you can only really afford to have a defensive head coach if he is just completely elite. Because the problem is, even if you find a fantastic offensive coordinator, as soon as they realize that they're a fantastic offensive coordinator, they're on to the head coaching job that someone else is going to offer them. It's so hard to keep those guys. It's been a problem with the Pats for a long time. We just continue to get poached in that area. It's okay because we literally have one of those few cases where we have this elite defensive head coach.
Yeah.
But so many other, the Packers, the Dolphins, the Niners, all these teams, you hire the offensive head coach to be your head coach so you can't lose him. So you can keep that system for multiple years. And so if you're not doing that, I don't I don't agree with it. Unless the guy is just incredible, like if it's like maybe like a Vic Fangio level defensive guy, you can kind of get away with it. But
Former DC of the Bears.
Exactly. But the Bears specifically, like, you need an offensive guy right there with Fields, helping him along, designing an offense that's actually for his skill set. That's my biggest problem with the Bears, is they're just not using their players properly, which is, it's infuriating. It's
the worst part, you heard that on social media this past week too.
In Justin Fields' debut game, they ran an Andy Dalton offense for him.
Yeah.
And it was a problem, and it seemed like they would take that into account. Here we are a year later, and it's still, same problem. Hardly any designed runs when this guy ran for 1,000 yards last year.
There's so many layers to that last comment. Matt Nagy had something to say about that too. He's like, oh, well, I think I was right, and that we should have kept Fields sitting that year instead of putting him in there after Andy Dalton.
That's not the lesson.
What?
That's not the lesson.
No.
You need your young guys to play so you know if they're good or not.
Yeah.
This is why I didn't understand why Mariota was playing 11 games last year.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
In front of Ritter.
What are we doing here? I mean, now you have to spend all of this year figuring out that Ritter isn't that good.
Yeah. No, he's a average quarterback. Ritter is what I'm talking about. I mean, going back to the Bears momentarily, though, we talked about the other day just who they could have hired. Like, during that round of everything, like, Dable could have been hired, which I thought would have been a home run of a hire for Justin Fields after what he did with Josh Allen.
100%.
Bieniemy is a guy that he had never been offered, but he had interviewed to be a head coach multiple times, where it's just like, why would you not take a chance on that?
Ridiculous.
Maybe you could have been burned because you already hired somebody from Kansas City the last time, and he didn't work out. But Matt Nagy wasn't actually calling plays, though. Like,
no.
God
forbid you would have gotten burned.
The one
Which is exactly what ended up happening.
Right? Like, the one notable game that Matt Nagy called in Kansas City before he was the head coach for the Bears is when they lost to the Titans in the playoffs after they were leading. So it's just like...
that one, too, I don't know. I guess I would have... I can't say I like the Bieniemy, but I don't like the Nagy. But to me, it's like that is an Andy Reid offense.
Yeah, no, I think that's being...
So,
I don't agree with that. I'm just saying that's what people could have been thinking.
Yes.
I'm not saying that's the reason why they didn't.
I just mean it's tough to know, I guess, if that's good, if that's bad. If it's not their actual system.
I think you have to have a coach who's willing to work with the person, too. It didn't seem like
that would help.
Certain people wanted to work with Justin right now.
Yeah.
And everybody's labeling him a bust, which... I mean, he hasn't done anything to prove to you that he's a world beater outside of some spectacular runs last year.
Yeah, and if he does end up being labeled a bust or maybe moving on to a second team, like, the percentage of whether that's his fault or the organization's fault is definitely far skewed in the organization's side.
100%.
Like, I don't really think Fields as a player has had much of a chance to show what he's able to do, except the back half of last year where they finally let him do what he did, and it worked, and then they came into this year going, nope, we're going to force you to be a pocket passer again. It's like, well, okay, have fun being 0-3, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Which, okay, here's the thing. We can keep talking about a couple games. I think we got the important ones.
Yeah, we did.
Other than to say, real quick, the Texans coming on a little bit.
They are. I think they made the right pick in their quarterback.
I think you made the right pick in your quarterback. Because in our rookie
Fantasy-wise,
draft, you basically had the choice of Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. And you went C.J. Stroud, and I think at the time that was not the popular decision.
Yeah, I think I got a little upside. Yeah, I got a little couple words from some people. Nothing bad. It was just like, are you really going to be doing that? Which I am a little scarred after my intro draft last year, not knowing how all that went down.
Yeah.
But no, Stroud, I mean, he's looking great. He's thrown over 300 yards in his first two games. He threw for 280 yesterday.
I forget the list exactly. He's on the list of top 5 passing yards in your first 3 games as a debut. I think he's like number 4 on that list.
He's over 900. I think Herbert was above him, and there was one other guy.
He was right ahead of like Andrew Luck. He was right behind Mahomes, Cam Newton, and there was one more, I forget.
The other thing, though, is 0 interceptions through his first 3 games.
It's impressive.
As a rookie quarterback, that is incredible.
Yeah, on this team with maybe only like 1 or 2 kind of good weapons there.
Yeah.
Tank Dell that you drafted and Nico Collins, which is now a guy, I guess.
And not like Damian Pierce, who was
played super well.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, he was your star last year. Now this year he's just kind of teetered off. Some of that's the offensive line, but like...
Yeah, number of attempts. Like, they're definitely throwing it more, but...
They've also been losing in games, so naturally you're going to be throwing a bit more in that situation.
But they gave it to the Jags.
They did. I'm impressed with what C.J. Stroud did because the Jags defense, they're not incredible by any means, but they are a solid defense.
Yeah.
They have proven to shut down certain teams, and the fact that the Texans of all teams put up almost 40 on them is pretty impressive.
Yes, certainly for the Texans.
On the right track for Houston.
Oh yeah, it's could be the start of a lot of things. So, anyways, I think we hit most of the games there. Speaking of young quarterbacks and the Bears and the Panthers,
Tyson Bagent? Yeah.
Well, I was gonna. I don't. Who is that?
It's the Bears. The Bears backup.
Okay. Yeah. That's why I didn't know it then. But yeah, it seems like we might be able to talk a little bit about this potential Caleb Williams tanking situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
That we may start to see some teams kind of lean towards who are 0-3, who are 1-2.
I mean, yeah, thinking about
who
the
have
teams,
their own pick.
the teams that are 0-3 right now. I mean, you got
The Bears.
Vikings.
Strong candidate, the Bears.
Very strong. In the recent power rankings, they are 32nd out of 32 teams.
That's great. You want to be on the bottom of those in this case.
Yeah.
They could definitely draft him, move on from Fields.
Yeah, they could.
And they probably should, even if Fields has a pretty good year. At least the hype on Caleb Williams. I'm not super deep into it.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I just know like there's going to be so many he was a first-round draft pick, so he's got 5 years technically on his contract. This is only year 3, so you have to come up with: are you going to keep him past next year?
I think you trade him.
That's what I was thinking too. You try to trade him, try to get something back.
Josh Rosen type thing.
Yeah, and I honestly, I think it'd be better for him. The Chicago's not doing him any favors.
Although it would not be better for Caleb Williams, I suppose.
No, I mean Caleb could sit behind him and play if Fields stays. For the typical Bears, let's get this other guy 4 weeks and then we'll put in the rookie.
Sure.
But
what's interesting is the Bears also have the Panthers pick, right?
Correct.
But the Panthers are 0-3.
Mm-hmm.
And might see some more Andy Dalton for the next couple weeks. So, I mean, Bears could have multiple chances at that. You could pick him, and then you could grab somebody else. I guess you could do what you did with the Panthers again this year. Trade back and get more and give Fields another year. The Cardinals, kind of curious situation.
They too have 2 first-round picks. Because they got the Texans from last year. Because the Texans went 2-3 with them.
The Texans are going to be near the bottom as well. Could the ghost of Josh Rosen come back and bite Kyler Murray finally?
That'd be funny.
It's like it's similar to, not quite, but it's like the cheater getting with the person during an affair or whatever.
Yeah.
And then at the end finding out that they're then having an affair with someone else. It's like, well, this is how you got here.
Yeah.
Could you really be surprised?
Yeah.
They'd move Josh Rosen just to draft you. They're going to move you just to draft Caleb Williams.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be very ironic. I'm kind of interested in that. They then move. It seems like they're leaning towards moving Kyler regardless.
Yeah. What do you think about Caleb's father talking about, hey, we could go back another year? We're not in any rush to get out.
Really?
Did you not hear that?
I didn't.
Oh, this was about probably a week and a half, 2 weeks ago.
I mean,
right after the...
I don't buy it. Has anyone actually done that? Did Trevor Lawrence kind of...
No, he didn't. But this is also the age of
I don't buy
NIL.
it.
He doesn't need to go right into the league to make X amount of money.
Yeah, but I think there's a bit of a jump.
Yes, you'll go from a couple million to teen millions off your initial contract.
Sure.
But like...
Security. He knows he's going to be a top pick right now. I guess, is this like a can we win the championship kind of thing? If they don't win the championship, maybe he comes back. That's the first time I'm hearing of that. Usually I feel like when these guys get up into that range, it's hard to pass it up. Especially just, you never know. There's been a couple of guys who've done it and it's worked out. There's been a couple of guys who've done it and they go back. Maybe they get hurt. Maybe the stock drops. Like they have a
There's
not
also
as good
different
of a year.
routes that you can go to. Like
Yes.
you think about what in the past, like Bo Jackson, he said, Tampa, if you draft me, I'm just not going to show up.
Yeah.
And then they ruined his eligibility. Eli Manning as well. But he actually still came out. You could have guys also, hey, maybe I'm going to come out after the actual draft, and now you become a supplemental player, and anybody can bid on you for that.
Okay.
And that's something that hasn't happened in a very, very long time, but it is still a possibility that you could pull. Do you know how that works or no?
Everything. No.
No. So like, what happens is in the supplemental draft, a team would put up what their draft would be for like next year. Like say they want to put up their first round pick, they just wouldn't have it for the next draft. They use their supplemental draft pick on this guy.
Interesting.
It's a very weird roundabout way of getting to where you'd like to go if you were the player, not necessarily for any of the teams. And
are the financial ramifications of that obviously quite different than being a top pick? I'd imagine maybe that's why people are going that route.
Yeah, you make more if you're like the actual normal draft
Yeah, you get the
pick.
guaranteed 4-year contract with the money. Whereas that, you probably get to pick your team, but it's peanuts or something.
I don't know if it's necessarily peanuts, but yeah, you're not going to get as big of a payday as you normally would in the actual draft.
That would certainly
shake some things up. Yeah, I mean, like who wants to go to a terrible franchise? And not every team that's number one overall is like bad behind the scenes. It's like they're missing a piece or two. And you might be able to go 500 the next year, or at least improve on a couple of games where it's just like, I wouldn't want to come to Chicago.
No. I mean, it's certainly interesting. Like, I was talking about this last night a little in our fantasy chat. Like, the NFL, the professional landscape of the sport of the NFL, and I mean, most of these major league sports, it's really the only one where you go from being an amateur to a professional and you don't have any say in where you're going to work. Like, that's... It's kind of, ironically, kind of un-American in some ways.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the way these things work, and it creates parity within the league, which I think is a good thing, and for the most part, it's worked out. But it would be interesting to see if players just came out of college and chose their team, like, or if there was some kind of major shift in how these pools of players are coming into the league. But it would obviously create a lot of chaos and become a lot more top-heavy as well.
Well, yeah, you'd get the 2 or 3 guys who's like, well, I want to play for this coach, or they've got this player, I gotta go play with him.
Yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. would just go sign with the Chiefs when he became a pro, and it'd be like, what are we even doing? The rich would get richer and the poor would get poorer.
Exactly.
So the way it's set up makes a lot of sense. It's just kind of curious when you zoom out and look at it and go, that's not really how anything else works. It's interesting that system is just, and no one was really fighting that system at all. It's just like, here we go. Other than Eli Manning.
Yeah, he's the only one that's really like. Well, yeah, that's the thing. His name is the one that really did that. Where it's just like, yeah, we're gonna go this way. We don't want to play for San Diego at the time. San Diego. I've got one question for you.
Okay.
Say the Vikings fall to 0-4.
Oh yeah.
Do you try to move on from Kirk Cousins since he's in his contract year and try to get a draft pick, trade him to a team that is desperate?
I mean, if it's me, yeah. There's been some rumors already. Kirk Cousins Jets?
Like, yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
It's for the end of the year. It's not going to interfere.
He's got a 1-year contract, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's just for the end of the season.
Yeah.
Rodgers wouldn't be threatened at all because Cousins wouldn't be sticking around.
No.
It
makes a lot of sense.
It makes the most sense, to be honest, for them.
I don't know where their heads are with the Vikings, but
0-3 is not a great start.
It's not great. I mean,
I think like one team since 2002 has made the playoffs after starting out 0-3.
Yeah, and it feels like they could be due for a bit of a retool. I don't know if they can do that quick enough where they don't lose Justin Jefferson in a couple of years, how that works. But beyond him, it gets.
Well, you're not going to have any cap space locked up with Cousins anymore because that was guaranteed money. You can give Justin more money and then draft a rookie quarterback.
Is the most boring answer they're just going to re-sign him? Like
100%, that's the most boring.
Because if he's been here this long and everyone's like, why? I feel like this is every year. It's like, why? Really him? Why can we not? He's still there.
Consistent Kirk.
Could keep rolling. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure. It's an interesting aspect to think about though, because there are going to be teams that, I mean, we only think of the Jets right now because they have the injury, but who knows what happens in 2-3 weeks? The trade deadline is week 8. Down. Yeah, a team that thinks that they could be a contender, and it's like, well, now we don't have anybody.
Yeah, it's very true.
To keep an eye on Kirk Cousins, I think would be a smart move right now.
Part of me wonders. This is a less so of a prize, but I mean, Broncos are 0-3. I don't know if anybody wants Russ. Obviously, that's more money, probably less good player, longer years.
I don't think anybody wants Russ, and the Broncos don't have anything to trade. They already traded so much to Seattle to get Russ.
Yeah. Well, that's probably why they would want to move on from him.
No, I agree to move on from Russell Wilson, but they'd have to give up stuff to get Kirk. And they don't have...
Kirk. No. What?
I thought you were talking about sending Kirk to Denver.
No. I'm saying they're another candidate of a tanking team that might trade their quarterback.
Gotcha. Okay.
The quarterback's not as enticing. Maybe they don't even trade him, but they're certainly a candidate to tank. I mean, new coach. He's there for 8 years. I don't think he's necessarily Is it 8? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Feels like it's 8.
Sounded so large.
He's there for a while. And he's clearly not married to Russell Wilson, so they're already 0-3. They don't exactly have a lot of players around that roster, so certainly seem like a tanking candidate. But yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, the Bengals are 0-2 tonight. I don't think they're a candidate for that, obviously.
No, I think the injury to Joe Burrow is just a timing thing. They're going to need him to actually get healthy. They might have rushed him back a week or two early, and he just hasn't seemed like himself. Granted, he's always started slow in each of the seasons that he's started, but just let him rest. Let Jake Browning or whoever the backup quarterback is now.
I think that is who it is.
I saw they signed A.J. McCarron, so he's back in Cincy.
Yeah, he was there for ages before that.
Yeah, most recently with the St. Louis Battlehawks.
Is that XFL, UFL?
I want to say that's
Apparently
XFL.
they're doing a merger now.
Yeah,
UXFL.
I did hear about that.
Or something.
Well, I think we should sort of wrap up our show with...
I think so. We touched on enough fantasy stuff. I don't think we need to dive into that too much this week.
But the fantasy sandbag sounds pretty fun on a recap situation.
Yes. So why don't you explain? We did a bit of a draft for this episode.
Yeah. So the fantasy sandbag is we were supposed to draft a team of starters, but the whole goal was to try to get the least amount of points. Yeah. The less points you got, you actually won in our head-to-head competition.
The tank-off.
Yes. My quarterback was Baker. I just didn't think he was going to do much of anything with Tampa Bay.
Pretty well, actually.
I hate to say it, he has.
I'm back in on Baker, too. He's a gamer.
Yeah, he is. And then you had Russell Wilson.
Up and down.
We picked 2 running backs. I picked James Conner and Raheem Most Hurt my soul right now. And you've got
hurt.
Yeah.
Raheem Mustard.
You've got Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift. Swift had a big week last week.
As long as he keeps getting 0 and then 30 and then 0 and then 30,
flip-flopping. Yeah,
then I'm okay. But less of the 30s.
Wide receivers, I picked Juju Smith-Schuster.
Fucking great pick.
And Allen Robinson. Also not a bad pick so far. You picked Darnell Mooney, who has back-to-back 0 spots.
Great pick. He's playing, though.
He is playing. Yeah, he did play this past week.
That counts, because that's the one thing with these is people get hurt, we got to replace them.
Yes, the hurt and the bye week as well. So once the bye week comes around, you don't get to keep them. You have to flip it out. Okay. Now, you could be strategic with it and find somebody who's going to be on the bye week next week and then go back to your guy if you want to do that. Does that make sense?
What?
So, Mooney's here, I'll explain it to you.
Okay.
Mooney's got a bye in week 3. Just all hypothetical.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to use the players that we have right here. Juju Smith-Schuster has his bye week in week 4.
Uh-huh.
So you're like, oh, man, I have to drop Mooney. I'll pick up Schuster. And then the next week, Schuster's off. It's like, well, he's off. Now I got to pick somebody else up. Mooney's on for the rest of the year. Pick him back up.
So is it not just I have Mooney and I need to fill in for that 1 week? Is it once I fill in for that 1 week, I now have to go with that guy?
Correct.
Oh, I can't go back after the bye?
No.
Unless he has a bye?
Unless the guy has a bye.
Oh, gosh. Okay, that is going to become a bit of a tightrope.
That's why I thought it would be a little bit more fun to do it that way.
All right,
you had Darnell Mooney. Great pick.
You did.
No.
I did.
On your team, you got
you
Darnell
have him on your real team.
On my real fantasy team.
Okay.
Which I'm probably going to drop him. It's
possible.
Disappointing. And then you had Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
So it's hit or miss.
I was going for big names.
Tight end. I picked Irv Smith.
Okay.
Couldn't tell you anything he's done so far this year.
Who's my pick?
You picked Kyle Pitts.
Hilarious. He didn't do much.
He didn't do much.
He did more than Irv Smith.
In the first 2 weeks, he had a combined 7 points. So I would say you did okay with that.
I was really trying to send it with some of my picks.
You did a good job. My defense was the Browns,
who are one of the best defenses in the league. Maybe not fantasy-wise, I haven't checked, but
They're
they
okay.
have a good defense. They have Myles Garrett, who
They,
scored flex numbers for me this week, so I'm pretty happy about that.
thing. And then you had the Cardinals defense, who
hurt me
looked like world beaters in week 1. And then
Good week this week. I don't even know.
I think they put up only 5 points. So I think you're okay. Kickers, I picked Will Lutz, and you picked one of the Carlson brothers, the rookie from Green Bay.
Okay.
Week 1
All right.
went to me at a whopping 67.32 points.
Oh, who was your MVP?
My MVP of
LVP.
Yeah, my LVP for week 1. I hate to say kicker because he only got 2 points. I'll go Irv Smith. He had a 3-2.
Okay. Those are big tight end numbers.
Yeah. Well, Juju was consistent for me both weeks, both with a 5-3 so far.
Yeah, he's going to be consistent in that aspect.
So week 1, I won 67.32 points to your 84.44.
Cardinals defense, 23 points.
Yeah, that one hurt. The following week, I thought I was going to blow you out of the water, and in the wrong direction.
Yes.
Like my team was going to score too many points. I had 94.28, and yours was 85.8. So we were like actually within 9 points of each other. I thought I won by like 15, 20.
Who was my LVP?
Well, we already discussed it. Darnell Mooney with a 0 spot.
Yes, okay.
Twice now. We have not totaled week 3 yet.
Love it.
Nobody. Thankfully, we're not wishing for any injuries, so nobody's gotten hurt yet. So we haven't made any changes. I did originally pick Christian Watson, but he was scratched from week 1.
Yeah.
So that's when I picked up Allen Robinson, and he's still out.
Yeah.
And then there's no. I'm assuming Michael Thomas will flare something up sooner or later.
I'm assuming.
But yeah,
I'm assuming that the Raheem Mostert week this week has me in a good spot to.
Oh yeah,
win.
he put up like 45 or whatever.
There's 35 in our league. Pretty good.
Which is what we're basing it off. We're basing all the points off of our sleeper fantasy
weird
league.
dynasty stats, so it might sound a little different.
35 points against the Denver Broncos.
So
he is the number 1 running back right now, and I am crying inside.
Yeah, I tried to tell you. You picked him. You're like, he's gonna get hurt. I was like, you better hope he does. I didn't expect this, but. That's my guy, man. We won championships back in the day when he was on San Francisco.
4 touchdowns this past week. 3 on the ground,
Lucian
1
picked him on A-Chain.
Yeah. Well, we'll regroup and hopefully after this. Actually, do we have any of these? Who plays in football tonight? It's
Eagles, Bucks.
So I got Baker, who's going.
I got DeAndre Swift. And then Bengals, Rams.
I got Irv
He's
Smith.
on one of those teams?
He's on the
I thought he
Bengals.
was still on the Vikings or something.
Nope, he is on the Bengals.
Nice.
And nobody's got any
I have
Rams.
Joe Mixon.
You do have Joe
I
Mixon.
have Joe Mixon.
Yeah, so you
I've got a lot of numbers sitting there still, so it might be.
we both
might
do.
be trouble.
Man, I hope Joe Mixon goes off tonight.
Well, he's always due for one game where he scores 6 touchdowns, and then he won't do anything the rest of the year. So
we'll see. Anyways, that puts a capper on Fantasy Sandbag. And,
yes, it
does. Is there anything else you want to discuss?
I wanted to end the show. I think we'll do this pretty consistently, hopefully, with a bit of a nerd corner.
Yes, the nerd corner.
I've got a couple options for you as far as routes we can go.
Hit them.
I've got a bit of a take. I think you've already heard my take about some of these Disney Plus shows, specifically Star Wars shows.
Yeah, okay.
And their naming problem with these shows.
You mean okay, yeah, go on.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
The other things, I don't know what your familiarity with this is. Wow, I barely got that out.
Words are hard.
The One Piece live action recently came out. Does that mean anything to you?
I know it's an adaptation of an anime thing, right? Yes, that's about the extent of my knowledge.
All right, well, that's option 2. The final choice is just I've got a bit of a rundown on what is going to be a very difficult Game of the Year choice.
Gambling-wise or just...
Video game-wise.
Oh, video game-wise.
Sorry. Gambling-wise.
I don't know, man. That's when I listen to sports shows, that's all I keep hearing is like, here's my game of the week, here's my game of the year.
The sports show is over. We're now in the
That's
nerd
true,
show.
right? We are in the nerd corner.
So, it's going to be a very tough Game of the Year decision. I can kind of go into some reasons why. So, Do you want Disney Plus names? Do you want the One Piece live action?
Let's do the Disney
education, or do you want the tough game of the year?
Let's do the name one. We'll save the game of the year for the next episode. I feel like we got a couple more months to do our game of the year.
It's 100%, and it's only going to get harder. So these Disney Plus shows, specifically Star Wars. I've talked about you with this phenomenon a little bit, as I was recently watching Ahsoka, but these, specifically the Star Wars shows, they can't just, whatever the name of the show is not what the show's about, I've found. And they can't make the show about whatever the show is called. Like, they just can't help themselves,
a lot. Like,
but spinning off to the next thing or the next thing. So, obviously, I'll just go off the top of my head the ones I can remember. Mandalorian Season 3. Yeah. Actually, I would say Mandalorian Season 1 is about Grogu.
Yeah.
Mandalorian Season 2 is a cameo spin-off season about Boba Fett and Ahsoka and other things. CJ Luke face. Mandalorian Season 3 is about what's her face? Bo-Katan.
Oh, Bo-Katan.
It's the Bo-Katan show. And then you go into the Book of Boba Fett, which is not about Boba Fett.
No.
They literally shoehorned 2 Mandalorian episodes in there in the middle of the season because they gave up on the whole show. And then he sticks
which you had to
for the
see
finale.
to understand, like, the welcome back for Season 3 of the
Well, yeah, because they put giant stuff in there as far as changing the direction of the Mandalorian seasons just randomly in the middle of this Boba Fett show. So that show is also not about Boba Fett. Obi-Wan is mainly about Reva, the Sith lady, and Baby Leia. It's mainly about those, which I can't believe it wasn't on my paper as far as what I thought it would be in that show.
Wasn't it supposed to be like Luke originally that the story was supposed to be somewhat around? Like,
that was kind of maybe the stuff that was in like some of the trailers, I feel like.
Okay.
When we saw some of him hanging around that old place in Tatooine, so maybe that was kind of what people were thinking. It didn't seem like Leia. I mean, as far as the story of whatever the originals with Obi-Wan and Luke, it seemed much more plausible that he would be doing something with Luke, who's on the planet he's protecting, than Leia, who's over here with the Organas or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's that as well. And then now they're doing Ahsoka, which is not about Ahsoka really at all. It's largely about Sabine and the other people from the Star Wars Rebels animated cartoon that came out and finished a couple years ago. It is like... And the longer that show goes, the more it is about that stuff. Like, I don't know if you've picked up on
Ahsoka
that yet.
goes?
Yes. The further and further away, kind of... They did one big Ahsoka episode a couple weeks ago with some spoilery stuff that I'm sure people saw online with some former characters from the franchise. And then this most recent one, she was in like 5 minutes. And then they just kind of did other stuff.
Just 5 minutes?
Which makes sense in the context of the episode. She was like traveling from a place to another place.
Oh, okay.
So they kind of just put her on the back burner for the week. But yeah, it just seems like consistently all of these Star Wars shows can't keep their eye on the ball and want to consistently set up the next thing or go in this direction over here. The only one that is about what it says it's about is the great show Andor. Which is about Mr. Cassian Andor. Pretty much from start to finish. Yeah. It's about him and his relationship with
That's
people.
That's probably been your favorite one so far,
change.
too, from what we've discussed, right?
100,000%. Yeah. My other option for what I was going to talk about with this was basically like a Disney Star Wars ranking of stuff since they got the brand. Mm-hmm. But also it would be pointless because Andor would just be at the top. And then everything else I would
What about 2 through 5?
I would just kind of throw in a bag and shake around. What about what?
I was going to say, what about 2 through 5? You just said shake a bag around.
Shake a bag around. I don't really know.
See, like, I really bought in on The Mandalorian in that first season. Like, yes, it was a lot about finding Grogu's origin and all that other stuff.
It's a simple throwback kind of western-y thing.
But, like, there are certain episodes in The Mandalorian, though, that really, like, stand out. Like, the very first episode I thought was fantastic because it was, this guy's a bounty hunter, he's going around. How about the opening for season 2 with Timothy Olyphant?
Oh, so
and
good.
Like, that's another like western one where he's the sheriff of that town or something like that.
In my head he's still like maybe just Boba Fett. Like I can just headcanonize that, and I'm just like, yeah, that's just what Boba Fett ended up being. Just a guy who found some armor and took care of the whole town.
But like there are some standalone episodes where it's like, well, that's kind of more of what I thought it was going to be. Excuse me, but like season 3 was going back to Mandalore and not like actual bounty hunter stuff that really
Season 3
brought
became
me
very
in.
strange because, well, they retconned the end of Season 2 in the Boba Fett show by bringing Grogu back
Yeah.
and just erasing all of that and now he's
The
just back
touch.
with them.
First of all, it was a moving moment basically at the end of season 2
Yeah, it was.
where Grogu goes. I don't want to spoil it, I guess.
I go for it.
Everybody's seen it now, right? Anybody who wants to see it has seen it.
Yes.
Grogu goes with Luke to go train to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
Seems like a perfect wrap up for that, and like
Sure does.
would have been perfect for him to go out and go do his adventures now, and doesn't have to worry about it.
He's off there doing stuff. Maybe he comes back a little bit later and gets back involved. But you've found a home for Grogu again, and he's where he should be, learning what he should learn. No, we got to sell more Grogu toys next Christmas. We don't know what to do with the show otherwise. Let's just rip him out of that situation. So the end of the season meant like literally nothing.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Well, like nothing.
That logic of
I don't either.
we don't know what to do with the season now. It's like you can. It's a made up character. You can go anywhere you want in that universe.
Just land on a planet.
It's not like George Lucas had its timeline for the Mandalorian at any point or anything like that. There's no lore about him. It was a show that you created.
It's a made up. Yeah, you created this character. Like, go do whatever you want to do. There's other characters you've made in this universe you can interact with. But yeah, I don't know. They just brought back. They just figured we'll just recreate the exact formula that actually already worked. We don't want to take any chances. Bring in a couple celebrity cameos for a couple of weeks. People like Lizzo. People like Jack Black.
That I didn't like.
It was okay.
I was fine with it. It wasn't like my favorite thing.
You know what I think the two most annoying things in the season for me. And
Most recent season?
We'll finish up here with this. Yeah. I could talk more about Andor and Ahsoka at another date. But the two most annoying things about the Mandalorian season was, one, that horrible episode where the kid gets picked up by a I don't even know, like a velociraptor, a pterodactyl kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And they take him off, and
they always fall behind or whatever.
That hurts my brain so much. Yeah, they follow him on their jetpacks, and then one of them says like, we always run out of jetpack fuel when we try to chase this guy after he takes our kids. It's like, so this has happened before, and you still hang out by this lake, and you still chased him with your jetpacks and knew you wouldn't be able to catch up to him. Oh, but it's fine because Bo-Katan's in the ship and she's following them. And then she just comes back and she's like, I found him. It's like, why
didn't you do anything?
Then why didn't you? So anyway, we'll go find him tomorrow. Let's go to sleep.
Yeah,
like,
it doesn't make
there
sense.
is a child in that monster's mouth, right?
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. They get there, and then it turns out, the kid's still there. Just a horrible nothing episode. The actual worst thing, you're gonna love this, is putting Grogu in that IG-88 robot.
Oh yeah. I hate
What are we
that
doing?
So much, yeah.
What? First of all, like, can things just end and we move forward? That would be nice, but of course no. Second of all, please explain to me the pros and cons of why it is better for him to go from the perfect little floating capsule that protects him to an exposed, like, slow, awkward, weird robot thing that he has to sit in the belly of, and now he can fake talk. Oh, I hated that.
Yeah. No, it wasn't even like talking really. It was still just like yes, no, yes, no, and it was just like it added some armor to him, but like he's
not at all actually.
Yeah, because he's still just like right now.
Now he can't put the shield thing down. He actually is way more exposed now.
Yeah.
Way clunkier to move around in. Hated it.
So he could interact and do other. I don't know.
So he could say yes and no in a funny scene, and they could bring back Taika Waititi doing IG-88 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no. There's some things that I don't necessarily agree with, especially since I was so intrigued by the first season and involved with it. Like, I'll keep watching and everything. Yeah. But
well, now I don't think they're even. I think it's like on hold or something. They'll maybe be in this movie with all these other people they're setting up. That's the other thing with this Ahsoka series. It just feels like it's set up for a movie. Like the whole show feels like set up. But like, okay, well.
Well, that would be on par for Disney.
Yeah, always on to the next thing. So that's my small take on the naming of these things. I just find it very interesting that they just cannot keep their eye on the ball. They just gotta go on to the next. It's like, make a good thing, and then that's what worked with Mando season 1. It's like, oh, this is just a good season of stuff, and ever since then it's just been like let's try to hook them on the next thing.
Yeah.
They did the same with, I don't think you've seen the final season of the Clone Wars.
No, yeah.
There's like 6 seasons of it, and then Disney bought it, and they actually came back and did the 7th season to finish it out. And half of it is a pilot for this other show called The Bad Batch that I think is out now.
Yeah, I've heard
It's the
of
same
that.
art style. It's
Yeah.
like a bunch of former clone troopers running around doing stuff or something. But literally, they dedicated like half of the final season to setting those guys up and going on an adventure with them so that they could then release their show later. It's like, wow, we really didn't have the time to mess around and introduce all these stupid people I don't care about when you're supposed to finish the story of the people I do care about. And then they didn't really have enough time to do it, and I don't know. We never even... I don't want to get into it. I
can't. It's too stressful.
We never really got like that Ahsoka Anakin moment that you're hoping to get, especially during the time of all the Revenge of the Sith stuff and everything going
Is that when
down.
that's taking place?
That's when the final season of Clone Wars was like
okay.
basically parallel with the 3rd movie of Anakin's downfall or whatever.
Okay.
And I don't know. They just didn't... There was small nods and moments to it, but there was never like a full-on like confrontation between those two. That they sort of ended up doing in Rebels, actually.
Okay.
Which they then ripped off for Obi-Wan. It's basically that exact same scene where he's fighting him and half the mask comes off.
Oh, yeah.
The exact same scene from Rebels, but it's with
okay.
Ahsoka and Vader. So, I don't know. That's interesting. But now they're doing it again in this Ahsoka show. And it's like they still haven't really had that moment. So, I don't... They keep taking swings at this thing and just
It'll be in
missing.
the last episode. They just want to keep stringing you along.
No, it'll be in the movie. They'll set it up in the show. I mean, there was some stuff they did in one of the more recent episodes between the two of them, but was also like they were just speaking in like these stupid like platitudes and forced and nonsense kind of things. It's like, can we just have these two characters talk about the stuff that happened between them? It's like, no, we couldn't possibly. So, anyways, that's my nerd corner for the week. We'll see where these things go in the future. Maybe at some point I'll dive into the entire One Piece situation. Which
yeah, you're going to have to explain that one to me and probably a lot of other people.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, that'll be fun. But yeah, I think that might do us for the week here.
Yeah, that'll wrap up Sportslandia here on
Episode 1.
Next Professional Athlete platform. I'm Brian Slyke. That was Ray Bradley. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in about a week.
See you next week.